So thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for the kind comments you guys keep leaving on the Google form I share every session. This week we're gonna dig a little deeper into Adobe XD. Well, not too deep. We're gonna go just through some early concepts of the UX deliverables that we're gonna work on the next class, which are going to be a little more profound on the Adobe XD side. And I'm just going to give you an introduction into the software, the tool that we use. And hopefully I'm trying to find a way where everyone can either download Adobe XD or have a way to work the exercises that we're gonna do on a different software if your computer doesn't comply with the requirements of the application. Okay, but don't worry, we're going to take care of that this week. Okay, so we didn't have any questions last week, which I think it's both good and bad. I'm not entirely sure if this is the perfect presentation, and maybe there are things that I'm missing. So please don't hesitate to ask, to raise your hand. As I was saying on the first session, curiosity is one of the bigger traits for any designer, and specifically for UX. So please don't hesitate to ask if something is not understood. If you disagree with something, that is always welcome as well. So in the spirit of that, I think we have some time scheduled that maybe we can do a quick exercise to recap what we learned on session number 2. And I just want to open the conversation real quick, but I need 3 volunteers. Does anyone care to join this little exercise?
Yes, I want to join.
Who is this?
Samantha.
Samantha. Great. Anyone else?
I can join.
Is this Tatiana?
Yes.
Excellent. Someone else? Jody, I'm looking at you.
Hey, Francesco here.
Who is this?
Wait,
Francesco.
someone said, yeah, go, Francesco.
Oh, no problem. If you want to join, just...
No, you go.
Both can join. That's
okay.
All right. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Francesco. Okay. So let's do the following. Do all of you guys use any type of banking application? To take a look at your banking's account and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. Okay. We're not going to go into the specifics, and this is just a very open conversation. But I don't know. Just take a few minutes, maybe each one of you, and let me know of your experience overall. Take a look at these questions and just talk about what do you use these applications for? How often do you use it? What are the things that these application maybe doesn't do and that you still need to go to the actual bank for? What has been your experience overall? What's your favorite feature and what's your least favorite feature maybe? So maybe Francesco, do you want to start?
Yeah. Let's make it fast. Okay. What do I use it for? Well, just to check my account, to do transfer, to pay some, for example, electricity. How often do you use it? Daily. To check it daily, maybe once in 2 days. What are the things you still go to the bank for? I don't want to go to the bank, especially now in the pandemic situation. So I think I went to the bank. It's Banco Pichincha, one of the biggest here in Ecuador, Pedro. And
Yeah.
Well, I just go just to open it 7 years ago when I arrived here in Ecuador, and I think two other times to make some special operation, but it's very rare to go there.
Okay.
Yeah, just to pay a check. Yeah, this the only thing I couldn't do online. What has your experience been overall? Quite good. The last time Banco Pichincha is experiencing a big change through agile methodologies. I know several person working there. They are trying to to move from a bank that is 100 here whole to something near people, no, more near people.
Cool.
Your favorite feature, definitely to transfer money to any Ecuadorian account, because it connected to the least question. What's your least favorite feature? Last but not least, now is I cannot transfer, for example, to international banks through app, through the mobile app, or to.
You can't? Wow.
Yeah, Banco Pichincha
That sucks.
doesn't allow international transfer. For example, I want to transfer to Italy, to Spain, to United States. You cannot. You have to go to the office to transfer it. There is no
What?
option to. Yeah, there is no option
Crazy.
for international transfer. It's crazy,
Okay.
but yeah, especially for foreign people. I don't know if for Ecuadorian people, but for foreign people, you have to go to the office and just try to transfer your money.
Gotcha. Okay, very interesting, Francesco. Thanks for the
No problem.
thanks for sharing your experience. Jody, you wanna take a jab?
Okay, so what do I use the app for? Of course, to check when WebClick has paid me. Just kidding, but like general, when I'm receiving transfers from other people, or when I do have to do a transfer to other people as well. How often do I use it? It depends on the case. Sometimes I need to check it because I really need to know if I have money to buy X thing or Y thing. Sometimes I just want to check if I have a good financial life and see if I'm saving money, daily. And then what are the things you still go to the bank for? Yeah, same as Francesco said, I think for wire transfers, in order to send money to other countries, and of course you need to go in person. At least that's my experience. And sometimes it has happened to me that in order to make transfers between accounts, some accounts don't allow you to make transfers online. I mean, through the app. You definitely need to go in person. So that's kind of weird for me. I mean, I came from Canada and everything was online. I mean, there was almost nothing that you needed to go to the branch for. But anyway, what has your experience been overall? I really like the app of my bank. It's I don't know if they've taken into consideration COVID and everything, but they always put like the graphs of people, with a mask, or like I don't know, it just looks very friendly for the user. I've seen other apps from other banks and it's just very plain and kind of boring to be honest.
Yeah.
So I like the UI, the user experience here.
Can I ask which bank? Can I ask which
Yeah.
bank?
Banco Pichincha, same as Francesco.
Okay, good.
Yep. So for those that have those, you can just go to your phone right now and see that there's like a woman holding a mask and stuff. I don't know. I just find it cool. And other times there has been families, and I don't know. It looks cool. What is my favorite feature though? I would say the how do you call that? Like I forgot how to say huella in English. The well,
Fingerprint.
yes, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, the fingerprint. I don't know. I just find it cool that you can just, you go to the app, you put your finger,
Yeah.
and then you're in. So I like that. What's my least favorite feature? In terms of design, I'm not too sure.
I
I'm
mean, not in terms of design. It could be anything.
for anything. Oh yeah, I do.
That's a good interjection there. I mean, we're not talking about design here, just in case. We're not talking about the actual app or what you like. It's just feature. Like, what do you hate about the application that doesn't have, that works terribly? Maybe it's slow, whatever you think.
There's something I'm not. I don't really like, and I don't know why they have it like that. But sometimes you try to do transfers at like I don't know 12 a.m. for any reason, and then the app tells you that you are not allowed to do transfers within a certain range of time. And for me, it's like, why are you guys doing that? Like, and I wonder,
Yeah.
working in an IT company, I'm thinking my developers wouldn't allow that. Just kidding, or
Yeah.
something like that, just because.
Jody, they are fixing bugs during night. I know that because I work with them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oops! I developed secret information. It's for all banks like that. Don't
That's
worry.
for in the knowledge. Maybe
Okay.
that's why, but I don't like that. But yeah, I guess they are doing maintenance or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah,
Interesting.
that's about it.
Thank you, Jody. Tatiana?
Okay, so what do you use it for? Like, as all the guys transfer money between my accounts to pay some utility bills, to buy some city transport tickets, to pay taxes, to do online shopping, or maybe sometime to do currency exchange. How often do I use it? Like almost every day, maybe like 5 times a week. What are the things you still go to the bank for? I really don't remember the last time I was in the bank, so yeah. What's your? I have a good experience. We have a really great like application that I use, so I like it. What's your favorite feature? I really like that I can do currency exchange online, just simply between two of my accounts, and I don't need to go to the bank or anywhere else. So yeah, and also that I can pay utility bills.
Mhm.
And what's your least favorite feature? I don't know, but I would like to have some analytics to see like where do I spend my money, like,
Mm.
and the application doesn't allow to have to see that.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. Thanks, Tatiana. And Samantha?
Hi, yeah. So I use the bank app to transfer money mostly. I don't usually log in, maybe like twice a week or whenever I have to transfer money. I don't really check my money, my bank account.
Okay.
The only time I went to the bank was to open the account and like to get a credit card. Otherwise, like I've never been back. Uh, and my experience overall has is good. I mean, the app allows you to transfer money, but there are some things that are not available. For example, if you want a document that I looked up on internet the other day, it like the bank's page sends you to a link that explains how it's done in the previous design, like the previous app, but it's no longer available. So like, what's the point of having it like online if I don't? It's not the same menu. So that's like confusing, and I have to talk to someone from the bank. My favorite feature would be that, well, I can transfer money to other banks. But it has like it's called Luquita, which is like an interbancario, like from banks, which with the cell phone number, that's it. You don't have to write down the entire bank account bank account number. So that's great. And my least favorite would be I would say that one day, like I had to find a way to scan a QR and I couldn't find it. So like, I don't think it's that friendly. I mean, it is because it's a new platform. It was updated a few months ago. But even for me, that I'm like a millennial, it's a little hard to understand some things. And like a document that I try to find, the menu is not the same. So that's a thing that I'm not like crazy about.
Right, right. Interesting. Okay. Super cool. Thanks, Samantha. Okay. So talking about the exercise real quick. I mean, this is very informal. This is not the way you should really approach either interviews or focus group, which this was actually more of a focus group because everyone could hear the other's opinion and they were sort of influenced at some point maybe. But the idea here is that research allows us to not define requirements necessarily, because the questions are not about what do you like me to do for you in terms of features, like what would you like me to design for you. You know, what I'm learning right now is like how you use the applications, and from then on we can extrapolate maybe what you're missing. And this is very interesting in terms of how user research works, because There are a lot of things you said, and depending on the context of the investigation that you're running, you can have a lot of findings that are very, very interesting, and not necessarily from the things that you say, but the things that you don't say. For instance, if we are, I don't know, running an innovation process and we're helping a bank develop their new application, let's say, obviously it has to be within some boundary, like a context, let's say Ecuador. Maybe we have Jody and Francesco's perspective from Banco de Pichincha, and that has a certain amount of ideas and information. But we can also learn what happens with banking apps, as the example Tatiana gave us in the Ukraine or in Europe. And the same thing for Samantha. Sorry, Samantha, where are you from? Where are you stationed?
I'm from Peru.
Oh, Peru.
It's
Great.
Banco Continental.
Excellent. And she's a bit closer. I mean, culturally, I think we have maybe some of the same problems in Latin America and similar service, but it's also interesting to have a benchmark of other countries, right? But let me just focus on a quick example from Jody and Francesco. And actually, maybe some of you, all of you gave me the same impression, but you might be having a good experience overall, but for example, when you were talking about your favorite feature, you guys were talking about things that you do specifically with the app that work well, right? But I think I was expecting, not that you did something wrong, but I was expecting maybe something that you actually love about the application. I don't know, maybe Jody, you mentioned it had something to do with being user friendly and stuff like that, but I don't know, maybe if you talked about a reward program, or if you talked about, I don't know, how the support of the application is outstanding. That would be a deeper, I would understand that as a deeper connection with you guys and the product. The same thing goes with using the phone for doing purchases. Diana mentioned that she used the actual phone, the application, to do purchasing, maybe different establishments, to just carry your phone, have it scanned, and pay for things. I think the technology in Ecuador is slowly starting to do that. I know Banco de Pichincha now has some ideas with that Deuna application that has been recently launched. But it's interesting how Ecuadorians in general, and this comes from other opinions I've heard as well, we're not accustomed to buy things with our phone. Instead of carrying our wallets and our credit cards, like stuff in the United States and in Europe, they work different, and if we take that benchmark with what you guys said about, yeah, it works for doing transfers, but what you're not saying is maybe the stuff that you can do overall, like, of course you can do transfer, and I think that is sort of like the minimum that the application has to do. But if extrapolate with the uses that Tatiana told us, for example, she does a lot of stuff with that, with the application. Maybe we can find a weakness in the current Ecuadorian applications and say, hey, we can find a competitive advantage if we provide with more significant support, or we can provide with I think Banco de Pichincha find that opportunity actually, and they said, like, okay, people should be able to pay with their phones. They should be able to have QR codes scanned and things like that. So the exercise here just gives you an example of how interesting it is to just talk to people in an open conversation in order to find insights, in order to understand how they use it, and from then on analyze it to find competitive advantages. Obviously, this was a very quick exercise. As I was saying, it was more of a focus group than an interview in the spirit of time. Interviews are a little longer, and they have actually a longer list of questions that, again, are not related to raising requirements from users. We're not interested in having them conduct our design choices. We're interested in learning how they use. And this is where this famous word empathy comes into play, because it's exactly that, and it's sort of very it's a humility exercise for every designer to actually take our egos to the side and actually think of others when we're designing, right? So again, this was just a quick exercise of how 4 people gave their honest opinions on the spot, and maybe how we can find things that are very interesting for our design choices. Like Samantha, again, for example, if you are telling me that you didn't find your QR code, that is very specific. That is almost a requirement. So maybe if I'm working for another bank, I can take that idea and have that as a competitive advantage for you, and to have a better experience overall, right? Again, this is a more complex exercise, but hopefully this gave you a little bit of insight of how things could be approached from the user research perspective. Okay, so this session topics, let's go right ahead. We're going to talk about, again, a little more about user-centered design and deliverables, and talk about how low, mid, and high fidelity deliverables work. I think the title of the workshop might be misleading on that end, because let me clarify something. You don't necessarily need, depending on the role, of course, but you don't necessarily need a design degree or a super fancy prototyping tool to get some of these deliverables going and have value added to the work that you do with the team. And this is why this workshop is directed to people that are not necessarily designers. You guys understand plenty of it, I'm sure, but maybe you haven't had the closeness to understand how deliverables can be done with a very lo-fi tools and still have value for others. We're going to take a look at the tools, again, specific tools that you can use that hopefully are open source and you can put them at use, and a little introduction to Adobe XD. What is it? How do we use it at Web Creek? And I'm going to show you some of the interface basics that you can take at home. So even if you don't have Adobe XD installed now, you're going to have the chance to do that until next week. But you can always go back to this video that we're going to share either today or tomorrow, so that you can take a look at the interface basics that I'm going to show you. Okay, so I keep coming back to this diagram because it gives us the context to discuss the techniques and the methods that are involved in each phase, right? And obviously each phase with each method and technique involves a certain amount of deliverables. So there are a lot of deliverables that you can get. You can get reports, documents, maps, prototypes, you name it. There are a lot of things you can do. But I want to focus specifically on Web Creek for now. And coming back to the diagram I showed on session 1, within the process that we focus on ideation or analysis, which are kind of the same thing, and going through design, we have this process where we have stakeholder interviews. Usually those are the clients. We build personas, we create user flows, we create sitemaps, and we develop a prototype, a high fidelity prototype that is finally client approved. But today, specifically, we're going to focus on user flows, sitemaps, and prototypes. We're going to have an introduction of what they are, how they are built, and we're going to do exercises for each on session number 4 and session number 5 of this workshop, okay? So you guys remember that the core principle of user-centered design is, include users, but what for? Because we want to test things, right? We want to have a strong idea that we're doing things right before we commit to development, before we make changes to our applications, before we invest in time for testing or for troubleshooting. So all of these flows help with that, help you test, help you analyze and test ideas, okay? So this is what we use the most at Web Creek: user flows, sitemaps, and prototypes. User flows, I know the BAs and actually developers know plenty of this, but it's basically a path where you represent how the user takes decisions through the system and using the product to complete a specific task from beginning to end. Okay, we're gonna take a look at examples of that in the next session, but that is basically the concept, right? So, and it has like very specific components, but it allows you to say, okay, I want to go in, I want to log in into an application. What are the steps that I have to follow? What are the options that I have? What happens if I forgot my password? What happens if I want to sign up? What happens if I want to sign in? You know, each of those has a process that has its own set of actions and results that we can map and we can understand in order to define requirements, right? So the goal for the user flow is basically to understand how should the product work for users. In the case of the sitemap, it's a more basic construction, but it's very helpful, especially with large applications and with corporate websites. I find them useful because they are a hierarchical diagram of a website or application that shows how many pages there are and how they are prioritized, linked, and labeled. If we talk about pages, we can also talk about sections. And that involves understanding web applications. You know, if we talk about dashboards, if we talk about user management, if we talk about, I don't know, a report section, all of these are have nested content that you can represent with this hierarchical diagram. You know, like I start off from a login, but at the same level, I have a certain amount of primary sections that have more content within and that you can explore as a user even deeper. So the sitemap allows you to see how that structure works. And again, specifically for website, corporate websites, for example, it's very important because it allows you to see how large a website really is. You can quantify the number of pages that you might have to work with, that you might have to work on, and the relationships between them. You know, maybe you can say that the contact page connects to, I don't know, a resulting services page, or maybe the homepage has a connection to a careers page where you, as a company, want to hire people. Then you can connect them and have the team understand how the product is structured. And finally, a prototype is basically a simulation or sample version of a product which is used for testing prior to launch. It's used for testing on all levels, right? It's used for testing with users, for testing with clients in order to validate. It's used to provide reference to developers, provide reference for QA testers in order to understand, test, and confirm things work in a certain way, right? And it's basically to confirm as a final gate on the design process, to test and confirm user and business goals are being met. And we're going to take a look at this in a few minutes, but the interesting thing about all of these is that, again, they can have different levels of fidelity. And they range from low, mid, and high. And you would think, like, what are the differences between them and how can I approach them? So let's talk about prototyping real quick, right? And this is why next week, maybe some of you are going to be able to install XD, and obviously with XD you're going to have an ability to give more fidelity to your prototype. But if you're trying to convey an idea of how things should be distributed in a particular screen, you can use pen and paper, and that could be as valuable sometimes as any of these levels of fidelity. And it's usually a process, you know, because this is how we save time. Because if we have a lot of assumptions, we still don't know things, we don't take a lot of time to do pixel perfect design with high fidelity in order just to understand things. We just use pen and paper, or we take a medium fidelity approach with different sets of applications. Actually, I've seen clients work, and I think the sales people know about this as well. Like, clients have even pushed themselves to create prototypes, working prototypes with PowerPoint, with Google Slides, because that's the whole principle of this. You're trying to represent ideas. And if you're approaching high fidelity, yes, you can use specific tools if you want to go that path, but that is more specific to the job of an actual designer. But in the early stages of analysis and research, any of you can choose a wide array of tools to do things like this. You know, the very least low and medium fidelity to sort of represent and have a discussion with anyone on the team, basically. And talking about tools, specific to these three deliverables. These are some options that are, not all of them are open source, most of them are, but at the very least, you're going to be able to have a free trial, specifically for the prototyping tools. You know, these have a price. They're bound between an account and certain things like that. But there are free versions that have limited functions, and if you want to approach those, you will have enough to get your head around for months, unless you want to really become like a UI or UX designer. The free versions of any of these products are going to be enough for you to get started. But in the case of user flows, for example, we have diagrams.net, or what was previously known as draw.io. We have coggle.it, which is a mind map tool. And you can either work PowerPoint or slides to make user flows, because it has the shapes. You can type within, you can draw arrows and things like that. But all of these, again, these three are open source. Sitemaps. There's a page called Wireflow that has a basic version, but I think this is like the most pretty one. I really like when some of the designers on the team use this one, because it's ready to present to clients. You know, you can show a sitemap and it looks really well. You can connect things. But in these three tools, you can use again to produce sitemaps as well. And in the case of prototyping, as I was mentioning, Adobe XD is our tool of choice at WebClick, because we have other areas of the creative department that use Adobe software in general for animation, for 3D. So we obviously take advantage of that, and we use that. The tool of preference is Adobe XD. But Figma and Sketch, that you might have heard of, are pretty much the same application. They differ in specifics and in certain advantages here and there, in terms of animations, in terms of little plugins and things that you can add. But I have found that Adobe XD has the best performance overall. You know, some of you know how large our projects can be. For example, the ones from oil and gas, we tend to it's common that at the end of a large oil and gas project, we end up with a desktop application with 350 screens. And whenever you have that amount of elements and information, some applications struggle, but Adobe XD actually works very well. So this is why we use it. And just one last thing, and emphasizing on the pen and paper again. Even actually decades ago, when we didn't really have these programs or these tools to produce this, high fidelity prototypes were from pen and paper were considered, because there was no other way to represent how you can actually interact with the phone, with a touch screen, with a TV, or with something of that nature. So pen and paper has always been like the cheapest, easiest, and most effective thing to use, especially on early stages. It's very important to not commit, and to have the comfort to just be open, to make mistakes, to draw things quickly, to think, to analyze, to process. But even so, if you want to create prototypes, those are not common anymore. I've seen like crazy prototypes where you can like paint, add color with crayons or markers, and build a lot of screens in paper, and have that be presented on a desk, on an office, and everyone can look at the interactions and the flows within screens. Those are not common anymore, because we have these tools nowadays, but they're still possible, and they're still valuable. Again, particularly on early stages, when you're thinking with user flows and sitemaps, that's a very valid and efficient way to approach things. So, talking about XD, which is the prototype tool of choice at WebClick, XD is basically the UX-focused solution built by Adobe. You guys know that we have Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe Acrobat Reader, we have After Effects, Adobe Premiere. There's a lot of applications within the suite of Adobe, and actually they got in late to the game, because a lot of designers that didn't know about tools like Figma and Sketch that were actually that were launched earlier than XD, The Adobe folk, including myself, we were trying to do prototypes in Adobe Illustrator, but it ended up being a collection of images that weren't connected and that you couldn't interact with. It was basically a collection of images merged in a PDF, right? So they find an opportunity to got into this industry and the game, and basically it allows designers and design teams to collaborate through the design process from ideation, wireframing, and developer handoff. It gives us a lot of room to do a lot, and with the ability, it gives us the ability also to share links, as you guys have seen around, to our designs and specifications where team members can leave feedback, add comments, and it's available on the browser. So as you can see the image on the right, we're still talking about images that are not actually code. They are a collection of elements and components that are color, images, fonts, shapes, but when merged through these artboards, as we call them, they can be connected within each other, either per element or per screen. And this is how we simulate. We simulate how a final product would look like. And this is where the value of these applications comes into play, because if we go back to the earlier concept that we were talking about testing before launch, imagine how now, like how clients and stakeholders are able to see their product as close as it gets before it's actually a real thing, and this is very important in order to have decisions made, in order to refine development and create a seamless process where you don't waste any time or money. And how do we use it at WebCreek? We use it for basic things like user flow and sitemaps, but it's mostly for high fidelity prototype. And let me go back to the example. We talk about the end step of the design process. Well, actually before evaluation, but this is where we give all the lights to the design, right? We add all the colors, all the resources and the visuals that make this look like a final product, look and feel like a final product. And this is helpful for user testing and client validation, especially for client validation of WebCreek. It also helps as a visual and functional reference for developers, QA testers, and business analysts, because with this representation, we can understand how things should behave, how things should be connected, how things should work ideally in relation to the requirements, and that's definitely valuable. We even use it as a sales tool. Even before we do the entire process we've been talking about, we create some of these applications just as a mock idea to sell products, to do experiments and see how things would go for a specific client or a specific initiative. So it has been very helpful. And actually, it has even expanded to help some, I speak from my experience actually, but it has even helped us get through graphic design and building presentations, things that you would normally do with the other applications of Adobe, but Adobe XD is flexible enough to even give us that opportunity. So let's go to the application, and I'm going to give you a general walkthrough of how this works, and what are the things that you should consider at the very least to do basic stuff. Okay, so whenever you launch the application, obviously you have to create the account, download the application, install it. Again, we're going to provide instructions this week to do that for our next session. But this is the landing screen where before you create a document, you can see several things, right? You have the home screen where you can select predefined sizes for the devices and the resolutions that you're going to work on. And that this can be tablets or phones. It can be, sorry there. We got ahead, sorry. Okay, you can take a look at resolutions for desktop. And look, again, as I was saying, usually this application wasn't thought out to be used for graphic design, but a lot of designers are using it, and they were adding recently even artboard sizes for social media posts, or you can choose to do custom size. A cool thing about Adobe, as you might know, is that it has a large community, an international community of people and designers and professionals that are constantly creating tutorials, workshops, and things of that nature. Actually, if you want to learn XD, you're just fine looking at the essentials of the get started tutorials and some of the videos that Adobe has around. It's really great, and you have a lot of resources to get things started really fast. I'm not going to dive deep into the section at the left, but it's basically you have the homepage. If you go to learn, again, you go to the browser and you'll see all the videos and the exercises that they're doing constantly to show you how to build things, how to create components and things of that nature. Every Adobe account has a certain amount of space in the cloud, so you can actually save files in the cloud. You can see the files that actually have been shared with you by other professionals or designers. You can see the ones that I deleted, and I can manage the links. The links is something we're going to discuss later, but some of you guys know that we create prototypes using links, and those can be shared and managed. Okay, or you can take a look at files on your computer that are saved locally. Okay, so I'm just going to create any type of artboard for now, because we want to look at the interface basics. We're not going to do much today on the side of design. But as you can see, when I clicked on that, I was prompted to this space. And what you see here is our artboard, right? If this is where we're going to place, you can place elements everywhere, but this is the place where you're going to just like insert things and move things around that you're actually going to use to represent your design. Okay, but other than that, the interface is composed by 3 main sections. Okay, at the top we have sort of like a general bar that has 3 sections. We're going to take a look at those in a minute, called design, prototype, and share. On the left, we see the tools that are available to create shapes, to create more artboards, to look for things, and a couple of other features that I'm not sure we're going to dive into today, but maybe they are helpful for other things along the way, further along the way. And to your right, we have a secondary section where we have additional controls to align, to merge shapes, and to do all sorts of stuff. So again, this workshop is not meant to be extremely detailed, but at the very least enough to give you an idea of how things work. I think we're running a little short on time, but I'm going to go right through it. Okay, let me just show you the basic principle of the beauty of Adobe XD and how it differs from other applications. Okay, on your left, you can see I'm selecting the black arrow. This is basically to select elements, to move things around. If I click on my space bar, you're going to see the hand there. If you keep it pressed and you use your mouse, you can move around the artboard. And as you will see on the list on the left as well, you have a series of tools where you can create shapes. Okay, so for instance, I'm creating a square. Okay, and this is not all too different from what we can do on Illustrator or Photoshop, right? So here comes the beauty of it. Let me change just the name real quick because this drives me crazy, but this is the name of the artboard that we're having. So I'm just gonna go and call it, I double clicked the text, by the way, and I'm gonna call it square, okay? So I'm gonna select this artboard by clicking on that text, and by keeping pressed Alt, I'm gonna do a copy of this artboard to the right. That's gonna be called circle, okay? And I'm gonna choose the circle tool to draw a circle. Okay, and what I want this to do is, let's put ourselves in the mind of a prototype. What I want to do is have this square be, first of all, red, and have the circle become green, and have this be the screen. Let's say it's a desktop screen, which it is actually. That if I click on the square, it's gonna transform into that circle, into that green circle. Okay, so let's first change color. If I select again with the black arrow and the left mouse click, I select the square. I'm going to change the color. We're talking about red. If you can see on your right, you have again the another set of controls, which one of them is fill. If you select on the color, you're going to have this panel opened, and you're going to be able to browse through tonalities, amount of opacity, or even specific hex colors, right? So I'm going to go through the red, and then I'm going to choose in the same way the circle that has to be green. Okay, so what I want to do is have those be connected, right? So I go back to the top, and instead of design, I'm going to go to the second tab and have this be in a prototype mode. So whenever you're selecting this, notice that it changes to a blue bounding box with an arrow here. So what I can do is just connect this element with the screen that it has to land on, which is circle. Okay, so all I'm doing is just dragging this selection to the next screen. And what I want to do is also that whenever I'm looking at the green circle, I want to click on that and go back to the actual square again. So I do the same thing with that particular element. Okay, so the two things are connected. Now, when I click on this play icon on the same bar at the top, I'm going to have a window that is basically going to show me what I just did. This is the first screen, and what we did is connect both, right? So if you notice the cursor, whenever I put it on top, it changes to the hand icon, and when I click it, it transforms to the green circle, right? And if I click it again, you remember we tagged it back to the square. It should go back. Okay, and this is the principle of how we connect screens, how we connect buttons, how we connect menus, how we connect images, you know. And from then on, you can actually do all sorts of stuff. We're gonna, again, not going into detail about this, but for example, I wanna have this have a different animation, and maybe this is a really cool function that and as you see, if you select the prototype, the controls change for that specific perspective of the document you were working on. So I have a type of action that we're having with the connection, but I'm going to change it to auto animate. I'm going to do the same thing for the element, and this should give us a smoother animation where the velocity changes and the shape can change. Sorry, this wasn't working too well. So I just did a copy of the square, and I'm gonna do it green. I'm gonna go back so you guys can see how that change in the spec of the animation worked. I did the same thing. Sorry, I just replaced another shape so you guys can see it more clearly. But I don't know if you noticed with the screen sharing, but now it's not like a transition between images. It's actually an actual animation, you know. And this is something you don't need to use right now, but it's just to show you how cool and how many opportunities you have to do a lot of things here. We've tried to do lately stuff like loading bars that are animated, transition between screens. Actually, this comes handy when you're working on mobile phones. Let's say, go real quick. I don't have a lot of time, but let's say I want to go again through do the red to the green, right? But I have an iPhone screen. So what I can do is take those changes in specs, and let's go back to the. Let's go back to doing a traditional transition, but I can choose the style of the animation and have this slide to the left and have this, for example, slide to the right. So whenever you're talking about mobile applications, you can simulate how you would navigate, with that little animation that you go back and forth when you're drilling down into information. Whenever you have the arrow here, for example, if you go deep into a section and you want to go back, usually have the arrow on your top left, right? You can have that effect by doing that here. And lastly, on the third tab, when you have share, free accounts can only share one link, I think, but I have an official account, so I can share unlimited links. But the idea on the third tab is that you can create a link and you can use that link to share it with anyone, basically, anyone that doesn't even have Adobe. And you can click on the link that you are provided, and this is what you guys tend to see most of these from us, and it keeps the animations that we were working on, but it's now available as a link on the browser. Okay, so this is it for now. I wish I could go into more detail about some of these functions, but don't worry. I think this is a good beginning into showing you how things work. It might look complicated at times, but don't worry, because the goal of the workshop is not that you guys build high fidelity prototypes and all of a sudden you join the design team and you have a lot of things to do and they're super complex. Actually, the goal of the workshop is that most of you at the very least understand the concept of the deliverables and can put them to use with this tool or any other tool that we've talked about today in order to get engaged with discussions with designers, with developers, even with clients, and be able to create things that can help you create documentation, create references, and things like that. So next week, we're going to work on user flows and sitemaps. We're going to create those here at Adobe and on the other applications I talked about today as well. But yeah, this was a brief introduction. So I went a little overboard with the time, so hope that's okay. And let me go back to the presentation, and I think we have a couple of minutes to do questions if you guys have any. So go ahead. Does anyone have any questions? Don't forget to add comments if you don't want to ask now. Is everyone good?
Hey, Pedro. Yes, I have a question regarding the XD functionalities.
Sure.
I remember that is a great functionality, especially when we have like 100 of slides per prototype, and sometimes client wants to change just a little screen, and this screen should be reflected in all of the prototype. I think we have like a feature to, instead of changing in every screen, we have the ability to change in just one screen and all the slides will be reflected.
Yes. Okay. So this is a good concept. I think it's a little advanced. I know you know a little more about XD, Gabriel. So that's a good thing. What Gabriel is talking about is how we build components. Okay. Again, this is a little more of a complicated concept, but let me show you how this works. So whenever we create stuff for user interface, we want to have them be reusable and scalable. We don't want to create buttons and things that are commonly used that have the same shape, the same specs, again and again and again and again, right? So if you look at this object right here that I created, which is called advanced, but let's talk about this as a button. If I create something here that's called, I don't know, longer button, and I don't know, if it's a super long button, what happens if we create a ton of these and the client says, hey, I hate that it's blue, it has to be red? Guess what? We have to change the color on every one. But if we create component this component saves the specs that it's using, right? So I also chose a padding setting to have this work like this. Whenever we're adding text, it keeps the same padding. As you can see, this was wrong here, so that helps. So what happens if I have a lot of buttons and the client comes in again? I change the original spec on that button and it should affect all of them. Okay, was that your question, Gabriel?
Yeah, thank you,
One
Pedro.
line.
But I think you wait. You will go too fast. Can you repeat that? How you create this main component?
Sure. No, I'm going fast because we don't have a lot of time, but again,
Yep, just you wanna.
we're gonna go real quick for sure. So whenever you're creating elements, you know, I created this button with the type tool and with the square, right? And I'm adding colors. I can add a border, it can be red or whatever I want, right? So what I need is to create that component. So I just create a copy,
Mhm.
and I suggest you group this with either Command or Control G, or by clicking, right-clicking the object. And what I'm going to do is, again, right-click and or do Command or Control K and create a component.
Main component. Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of details here, but as you can see now, instead of selecting it as a blue or a white outline, it has a green outline. It means it's a component. Okay, so remember, whenever you're editing things here on the master component, which has the full green diamond here, you can change stuff here and it will reflect on everything you do. Okay, so if I create a copy of this, notice how this diamond goes back to white. You can recognize the master component when it's filled. Okay, so oops, let me go back. I suggest whenever you're building buttons like this, again, to use the padding, because it makes your life easier if you want to change the content. So you're good until this point, right? Because we made copies of the buttons. Is that correct? You're good. You're good until there.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say we want to change the specs. We're gonna see this later on. But for example, if I change the corners, they'll change. Let's say we want to change font. I want to do Arial. It changes to Arial. And if I want to add a border, I'm gonna add.
Oh, it changes automatically. Okay.
It changes automatically, indeed. And I change the cloud name, and you can do that. Okay, so obviously this concept, Gabriel, can be extrapolated to other things like navigation menus, for example, which are a pain always for us. But with if you work components, right, you can create those menus, and if the client wants to change words or colors, you should usually be able to do that kind of thing.
Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you guys have even more questions, please put them on the forum. If you didn't understand something, or if you want me to go deeply into a specific thing you want to take a look. Sadly, we ran out of time for today, but just share your questions, and I'll find a way to show you how things can be done. But again, we're gonna have more sessions, 2 more sessions. We're gonna build a user flow, a sitemap, and actually a prototype. And we're going to put all these tools to use. I insist, we're not going to be focusing on doing the high fidelity. I'm not going to teach you on this workshop, at least, how to approach color, how to do things look good, how to create like super high fidelity web applications. I want you to know the software. I want you to know the tools. I want you to know the principles of deliverables so you can create your own and expand from that. Because as I was saying, I'm surely not the best teacher, but there are plenty of resources around where you can just download the application, go through the videos, participate in the community, and you can learn things, solve any questions, look at videos and learn things. that's how basically we've done it. All of us as a team, we've done precisely that. So yeah, just add your questions and we'll keep moving forward. And sorry to go overboard, Jamie, but I think we're good for today.